Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Johan Jedaker, the visionary CEO and founder of Better Support. Johan's mission is to provide the world's best remote support talents, helping businesses become more profitable, save time, and scale faster. With over a decade of experience in outsourcing, Johan has empowered over 120 companies with top-tier talents from the Philippines, reducing costs by 50 to 70%. I've asked Johan to join us here today to share his story and how outsourcing is helping businesses achieve exceptional results through unparalleled support services. So Johan, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Hi, Darren. Thank you for having me. I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to have you here. Obviously, we're both kind of expats based out of the Philippines. We both have a lot of experience working between different cultures, obviously in the Philippines here. How did you get started? First off, were you an entrepreneur before you came to the Philippines?
No, not at all. It was a mere coincidence that I ended up in the Philippines. I was working as a bar back in Sydney, Australia. Had a friend who lived in Manila, so was planning to go back from Australia to Sweden, and I stopped by in Manila and had nothing better to do, and heard that there was a Swedish company searching for a bilingual customer service rep. So I got a job, and it was a startup, and within that company we scaled it from 10 to 200, and I ended up being a COO and partner. So that's what I did, and then I jumped off, sold off my shares, and then started my own.
Got it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. It's a great first experience. So what were some of the challenges? Was it just all sunshine and rainbows? Like you just started, it sounds like you worked your way up within the company. Did you,
Yeah.
Was that easy? What were some of the challenges that you faced in doing that?
It was hard, so we scaled it a lot, and my boss at the time, the CEO, he didn't really have much experience of setting things up in the Philippines himself, so we did that together. But he was a great support to me, and it wasn't easy, but we had a lot of fun. So that's how it should be in the Philippines.
Right. And so what would you recommend to someone who's starting out or struggling right now? Like they're in a company, a growing company of some sort.
Yeah.
Is there a way to prioritize? What do you focus on when you're obviously going from 0 to 200 staff? There's a lot. There's a lot of training and onboarding and processes and legal issues, and then people that don't work out. And
yeah, I think that keep on believing in what you're doing and be patient. I see so many companies or individuals that just give up, but I think one of the most important ingredients is just to be patient, long-term growth. That's what I would say. As long as you have something that brings value to others, obviously.
How about herding the cats? 200 staff, sometimes it'd be hard. I have a wife and kids. Sometimes it'd be hard to have everybody aligned just within the same house, let alone the same company with hundreds of people. So what do you speak to that? How do you keep all the ducks in a row?
Yeah, so I think that I'm a great advocate for remote work, but during the pandemic, my views have actually changed a little bit. I think it's healthy to meet your employees like at least a few times per month, and that's the best way of aligning everything. But I think that as a leader, you have to have empathy as well, and people in general, they want to be heard, they want to feel appreciated, and as long as you can give that, I think that people are fine with things not being perfect in your organization. So that's something that I would probably recommend.
I love that. Yeah, we're actually using a hybrid structure as well. I've been working remote since 20, I think is when I first started. And I'm an advocate for hybrid. I don't think one or the other. I think hybrid is probably the best. That's my opinion, of course. So of course, that's tough when you have different time zones, right? In different cultures. Can you speak to some of the lessons you've learned in working with the culture of the Philippines, perhaps? That might surprise people.
Yeah, there are many layers to that, but one thing is that Filipinos don't always speak up when something is wrong, or I think you might have experienced this yourself. They might say yes, but the instructions or the message that you're trying to put forward isn't always received or understood properly. And this is some baggage from the past, right? With company hierarchies that are pretty strict. Unfortunately, I think it's starting to change, and some Filipinos also have like personal struggles that we in the Western world can't always relate to. And it's difficult to know these things if you haven't experienced it like firsthand.
Yeah, you're talking, I think it's called the Power Distance Index. I remember reading a book, I forget which one, but they were talking about how South Korea Airlines, Korean Air, had one of the worst safety record when they tried to figure out why it was, because they listening to all the different black boxes. There was one instance where the co-pilot was trying to get the pilot to understand that they had no fuel.
Yeah.
And he was just being so timid about it. And the pilot had like, they're just back-to-back flights. The pilot's just tired. And the co-pilot was just so unable to, we're going to crash. Like he would just make this really timid suggestion. He wasn't conveying the urgency. When they realized it was a lot of the cultural norms, like you mentioned, like respecting your elders and knowing your place in the company, sort of thing. So this guy let them fly without fuel and crash land into a mountain or whatever because of that. So what they did is one of the things they made speaking English mandatory for all pilots to get them out of that cultural, that power distance in the power distance index, I think it is, which is like from your superior to the lower. Like in Japan, the MC of your wedding used to typically be your boss by default. That's the power that they had over you, so to speak, type things.
Yeah, exactly. I know another example of a company that I used to help, and they went into the Japanese market, and they are in like fast fashion, and they saw like a very low rate of returns, and they thought it was like great. Our product is fantastic. People are loving it, but the Japanese people didn't want to return it because they felt it was rude. So instead, after a couple of months, their like sales dropped, and they didn't have any good sales in Japan anymore. So that's something that you find, I think, in most Asian countries.
And it's unique. I think we get a unique perspective of the world, the cultural lens. I never really understood it. When you grow up in a country, you don't understand how much you see things. It's almost like a certain pair of sunglasses that you're always wearing. And that's just how the world is. And you don't know any different because you've never seen any contrast. And then once you finally do see it just becomes so apparent to you. I think that's a really important. I remember I was so naive. People were warning me when I went to Japan about culture shock. And I remember saying culture shock, schmulture shock. We all have hair and hearts and skin and moms and dads. We're all humans, one love. No, culture shock is real. It's a real thing. People don't understand that. What are some of the advantages that you would say of the culture of the Philippines?
Oh, there are so many. The work rate, like the loyalty that you can find with some or many employees, I would say. Like the language proficiency is a big plus as well. And you can unlock talent that can be very hard to find in a Western world because of the experience and exposure that many Filipinos have of working for like major or like companies in pretty decent positions. So we have employees coming from some pretty impressive companies. So like unlocking talent that you can't necessarily find like onshore, that's a big thing. And I think that brings us to the fact that outsourcing is no longer about just like cheap labor. You can find like really high quality that will enhance your business.
I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to throw him under a bus, but I remember I'm from Canada and I remember talking to a guy I grew up with. And we've always stayed in touch and been friends. We're not necessarily the best of friends. I've noticed he was a bully in public school that used to try to pick on me. And then we met when we were like late teenagers and just were friends. And we just one of those people you run into every few years and get along. But he had moved to Alberta. And I remember once he was complaining about all these immigrants to Canada. All these immigrants to Canada, they move here and they live 6 people to a 1-bedroom apartment and they'll work for half your wage, blah, 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 blah. And I had to tell him, I'm going to make up a name. I was like, Bob, what you don't understand is how good you have it here. That's how hard things are where they come from, that when they come here, that's their mindset and mentality. Like it is a competition for your jobs, for all this stuff, that this is what people are willing to do to have a good life and succeed. And that you're complaining about it, but so now I feel like you talked about COVID, post-COVID, I feel a lot of people realize I've actually had issues before trying to work remote. And now I feel like people understand that if we're going to be on Zoom for our team meetings, it doesn't matter if you're in the same city, if you're in the same province or state, or if you're in the same country, or even if you're in the same time zone. What matters most is your performance. And so it's almost pushed the world into a bit of a meritocracy, which I think is really painful for some people. because it's almost if you were playing in a sports league and all of a sudden the sports league got an extra 100,000 players and there's a reshuffling of the hierarchy of who's top. And what do you think about that? Can you maybe speak to that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with you. I think also like one of the realizations that I have had during this COVID and having people working from home are, on the other hand, you have the long-term effects. So you might recruit, if we're talking outsourcing again, or you might recruit a freelancer that happens to be like an introvert, and that person will stay working from home without any colleagues basically for 10 or 15 years or whatever. So there are like drawbacks to it as well. I think it's healthy to meet up, to challenge yourself, even if you are not necessarily like a social person. Yeah, but definitely, especially the pandemic has opened up the eyes for many companies to outsource and discover like quality in different countries.
Yeah, I feel like it's a benefit. A lot of people, there's a lot of negative things that we can focus on. I'm hoping that it's not that things are getting worse, but that more things are coming to light, and sunlight's the best disinfectant. And I'm hoping that we're pushing what's going to emerge from this are some of the principles that made our civilization great to begin with, like the principles of meritocracy, which is again what we're talking about. I remember I was in Vietnam and there was this app. I think it was called Be Tasky. And it was, you could order someone to come to your house, like a housekeeper or something for the day. And this lady came and she had just done such a fantastic job. We had a 5-story, my wife and I were in a 5-story, like 6-bedroom place in Da Nang, Vietnam. And she came and she just cleaned the place with a toothbrush. Like it was just phenomenal what she did. And I think it was something around $15 US for her to be there for 4 hours, whatever. And I remember going online and seeing in a Facebook group, somebody asking if they were overpaying to pay this guy $50 an hour to mow their lawn, and they were providing the riding lawnmower for the guy. And I just couldn't, like the contrast, I couldn't believe it, because this lady was so nice, so professional. Like it was just a really good system that they had. And she showed up, did an amazing job, was there for hours, 4 hours. It was $15. She did everything I could have asked for her to have done. And I'm just thinking of some guy drinking a beer while riding this riding lawnmower in Florida in the States. This is not sustainable. This is not, there's something that, you know, so
perspectives.
There's not a question there, but you talk, one of the things that I value, I always say the Philippines should change their national animal to the ant, because they're just such diligent people. They work together as a community. They're just, and plus there's ants everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Many countries are seeing the benefits of Filipinos as well, because they're working in their countries, doing jobs that their people doesn't necessarily want to do in healthcare, in seafair, and so on. So they are like they make things like tick and work.
The work ethic. I really appreciated that when I came here. I felt like I was back in Japan to a certain extent. I really learned about work ethic in Japan. What are some of the skills and behaviors that you think are most important when you're developing a culture, when you're trying to put together a team that some are maybe local, some are remote? Are there any specific skills or behaviors that you think are mission critical?
I think that being able to communicate and speak up is really important. Also for the benefit of the clients that we have, in case we have employees being in direct contact with them. I think for us as an organization, like being transparent, it has been like really important. And I think I mentioned it to you before, like with my past experience with my former company, that we weren't perfect. We were honest and we valued the work that people put in. And if you do that, people have a lot of understanding with other things, not necessarily like running 100% smoothly.
So what do you mean when you say transparency? Is that, you mean using time trackers? Is that, what does that mean in terms of transparency with a BPO?
I think that if there might be things in the organization that are not perfect, but if an employee comes up to me and say that, hey, isn't this supposed to be this way? We give an honest answer to, hold our hands up, like, we got that wrong, but we will get it right. And I think that's something like quite unique, that our employees feel that they can approach me personally, like anytime, and I will give them like an answer back. It's not going to get stuck in like some management where like they are giving like a vague answer. They can come up to me or to our HR manager like anytime, and yeah, we will be honest with them.
Okay, okay. What are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to come and engage a company like yours?
You mean as a client or?
Yeah, if someone's coming and they're like, "Hey, Johan, I need some staff to perform XYZ."
Yeah.
What are typically the biggest mistakes that people make that are preventable in terms of
Yeah.
messing this up? Because I know you hear this all the time. Somebody runs whatever YouTube ads and they go, "Oh, I did that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work." Somebody hires someone from abroad. They go, "Oh, that doesn't work." So what? But often it's just because they tried it doesn't mean they did it well when they tried it. So what are some of the biggest
exactly.
mistakes?
I think there are two things. Like one is expectations, that you need to have a clear idea of what do you want your offshore employees to focus on. And the second one, like this is a big misconception always, is the pricing, because just as you can go and buy a Ferrari or a Fiat, you will have differences in the performance. You can go to Upwork, you can find an employee for $2 an hour, but it's not necessarily going to give you like the same output. And when you outsource and you do things properly as an employer, and this you probably know, there are a lot of like government contributions and such that we as an employer have to cover. And that means that we cannot compete with $2 or $3 an hour, but you get this and this instead, which is all down to like long-term support and retention of employees. And at the same time, outsourcing with the right partner guarantees that you don't overpay as well, because there are those freelancers that are like overcharging for
or the ones that
shouldn't be.
That use software to trick the time trackers and have 4 full-time jobs, but they're really just working one job and making excuses to everybody. And there's a lot of there is unscrupulous people everywhere in the world. There's also, I think, a need for cultural, although language, like that's something that's really hard. Language and culture, there's still a translation component. You almost really need an ambassador to liaison between. And I think people forget how important that is, because there's just, they say manners are the grease of the social wheel, so to speak. And there's just certain etiquette, like you mentioned, certain ways of reporting things. That are tough to do, tough to get done. And a lot of employers are terrible at delegating. Terrible. Delegating.
Definitely.
Terrible at delegating.
Yeah.
Why can't you read my mind and do it how I think it should be done, even though I've never done it myself? That's just such a common.
Yeah, for sure. And like asynchronous communication, that you just drop someone a message on Skype or Slack or whatever, do this and this, and then it's not always that straightforward. So the first thing we do is always to assess the needs of the client, and then we pair it up with an employee that is perfect for that role skill-wise, and also from a compensation perspective. They don't undercharge, they don't overcharge.
I love that. And you're really helping make the systems that become the sellable asset for a business, right? For a lot of companies, that's something that I think people don't necessarily realize. When everyone's in the same room, in the same office, there's a lot of unofficial training that goes on and coaching. And so there's a lot of things that are learned through osmosis. But if you want to sell a business, or when you're dealing with a team that's working remotely, that's not there. If you didn't get on and say it during the training call, they're left to figure it out on their own. And if they don't do it, they want to do it. And that's the documentation and the processes that you really need if you're to package up a business and sell it as an asset to someone. It has to be that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's spelled out.
I've probably onboarded like more than 150 clients through my decade of experience. And like the onboarding is something I always take part of, because I know there are so many like small things that usually becomes like a big question mark at the end. And as you say, like when you outsource to a BPO company, when you try to sell your business later on, we can show that the employees that you have working for you, they have like proper work contracts, they work in proper IT systems. And it's amazing to see how many that are outsourcing to freelancers where the security of the data is zero. They're like risking their whole business, because I know there are companies going after freelancers, asking for data and such. So that's a big part as well.
Oh, 100%. Where do you see the future of the industry going? If we were to look through your telescope or periscope for 5-10 years, there's a lot happening with technology. There's not a lot happening economically and geopolitically. Where do you see things?
So now we're probably talking about like global employment. But one like concrete thing that I see is that I think a lot of more senior positions will be outsourced. That could be within finance, within health, and so on, like account managers, project managers, and so on. Yeah, that's one big thing that I see, and also when I talk to colleagues.
So what do you mean by senior positions? Can you go a bit more in depth on that?
It could be those that have specialization within certain areas, but like managers, account managers, executive assistants, project managers, and not talking about IT, like engineers, developers, and so on. I think that what outsourcing started with, at least the majority of it, was to outsource like entry level stuff. You know about the call centers, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people just making 200 calls a day.
Yeah.
I think that is shifting a lot right now.
So what is that looking like? Because it sounds like you're starting to touch on some of the new technological advancements that are happening. We've got AI chatbots and a lot of AI tools and that are happening. Is that what you mean? There's less of a call center that's doing 200-300 dials. There's more of activity that sends people to an AI chatbot that then only the warm leads are called. What does that look like? Can you break that down?
Yeah, I think that has already happened, because what used to take 3 or 4 people to do, like with the help of AI, you can reply to like many more tickets or inquiries yourself. So that has already effectively happened. But I think that people are more likely to outsource more difficult tasks as well, where you need, especially like within finance and medical, there's so many like roles that are quite like niched, and I'm seeing that being outsourced much more than before.
What do you think the future of work looks like? You've spoken about it, obviously, like more senior positions are going to be outsourced in that, but are we going to be replaced by the robots? Is that something that you think is a real concern? Are there some industries that are more protected than others? If people are listening, if they have any sort of, if they're AI doomers of some sort of something, you think that's justified? What do you?
The honest answer is that I don't know. I have already seen like AI, you can call it replacing or enhancing, whatever you want, but I know myself as a customer service rep that I used to do 60 tickets a day, like that's emails and chats. And I know that there are like systems that you can buy off the shelf for $30 a month that will do 3/4 of that job. It has already happened, and you have seen companies like Teleperformance and such, like they have made cutbacks. And it was this Swedish company Klarna that announced that they had like chatbots replacing 70% of the work, and their stock tanked with, what was it, like 18% in one day, talking a mega company. So I actually don't know what will exactly happen, but it has already had an impact. That's for sure. What do you think, Daryl?
I think that they used to say that tractors will replace farmers and we won't need farmers. I think when calculators came out, they said we wouldn't need bookkeepers and accountants. I think when spreadsheets came out, they said we won't need accountants anymore. QuickBooks, we're not going to need bookkeepers and accountants anymore. And I think what's happening is they're just tools. I think we've been creating tools since the dawn of time. What's interesting, you can look it up. There's actually, I only found this out maybe less than a year ago, but it really, I don't know, it stuck with me. That's the way to say it. There's a flash of light when the sperm and the egg, there's a literal spark of life. It's a legitimate thing. Some scientists claim it's a releasing of zinc, but okay, but what is that? What is that? I'm not trying to go on some religious rant here. I grew up in a house of physics and geology, hard sciences, but what is that? It just seems like a really profound thing to me, that the moment that a child is conceived, life, the moment people want to debate when you can abort a fetus, that's not this conversation. When the sperm and the egg meet and there is conception, there is a flash of light in the womb. That's a real thing. They can repeat it. And so there's a spark of life. And I just don't necessarily believe that these AI are going to become sentient and suddenly have a spark of life. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I just see them as tools, ultimately. It's just like a car. We're already cyborgs right now. I'm speaking to you through a microphone tied to wires that go to my computer, that goes to the Wi-Fi, that goes to, like, there's so much of this that we're already cyborgs. How much are we doing? When you're going to go somewhere, you're going to get in a vehicle and drive. Like, we're already cyborgs. It's just not necessarily embedded into our biology. So I
Right.
just think we're creating better tools. I think like spreadsheets, the productive accountants became more productive, and the people that hated
Right.
their job and hated doing it, they had to get retrained to find something else. And
Right.
I
Right.
just ultimately, I think there might be periods of disruption where it's uncomfortable growing pains where
Yeah.
people are like, I don't know what to do now. Almost like COVID. There was like every COVID happened, a lot of people changed careers. A lot of people reassess their life priorities. But I don't
Yeah.
think universal basic income is the solution.
Yeah.
You know,
Got it. I think one thing about, if we're talking customer service and AI again, is that when people have a problem with a product that they have bought from someone, or a service for that matter, they also want to feel empathy from
yeah,
the customer service rep they are talking to, and you get none of that from AI. And people
right,
might say that, yeah, but you get that in the future, but it doesn't beat talking. You want to make your complaint to a person, and you
right.
want them to recognize it and give it back to you. And I think that in the future as well, like if you're talking to AI, that will be labeled that you're actually not talking to a human, you're talking to a bot.
Right.
So yeah.
I think there's a heart to heart connection. There's a lot of things that became mimicked and modeled and fooled. This is a funny thing. There's a flower that the way it tricks bees to cross pollinate it, and is that it looks like a female bee in heat. And so the male bees come over and they do their thing and then go on. And that's so
Yeah.
there might be robots that can feign certain things, but at the end of the day, trying to connect soul to soul. I think that there's a certain component to that. What is it that an artist does in a song that allows 50,000 people to feel this? Are we going to get that from AI? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like when someone's singing
Yeah.
about their life experiences. There's really good music being made by AI now, but it's just tough to say. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I think it's just going to go full circle where we've gone into automating things, and so many of us hate these automated things that we get from companies that are so big. We know they don't care about us.
Yeah.
It's going to go back to where you want to. You think about. Sorry, go ahead. You think.
Yeah. I think that, yeah. So sorry, Daryl, my iPhone is coming from a delivery.
Yeah, you're good. 1 second.
Yeah, yes.
So I just wanted to say, I think that like when people talk about like my barber, my dry cleaner, my coach, my whatever,
Yeah.
there's a personal relationship there. If I waved a magic wand and everyone here was able to survive, they had food, power, water, place to live, they'd want to spend their time creating and spending time with people they care about and love. And I think that
Yeah.
that's part of what these tools are hopefully going to enable versus replace.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, AI will definitely enhance like the customer experience that you'll be having, because the competition becomes more fierce as well.
Mm,
As a human, you need to level up,
mm.
basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, hopefully
yeah.
it will turn out good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. What about some of the habits? What are some of the habits that you feel are most important to have when you've got so many people in the company, so many clients that you're juggling? What are some of the
Yeah.
daily, weekly rhythms that you think are mission critical?
Yeah, so I think luckily for me, I'm pretty good at doing many things, and it's almost like it's an undervalued skill as well, that people are becoming so specialized nowadays. But yeah, if we're talking about me, I'm pretty good at doing like a number of different things, not necessarily the best at one thing. But when you're handling a lot of people, I think that you need to have that skill set. You need to know a little bit about like accounting, a little bit about sales, a little bit about managing people, whatever it could be. And yeah, you need to be ready to get your to work hard as well. Your work rate needs to be like, yeah.
So are there certain pillar routines, daily, weekly routines that you think are mission critical?
If I talk about me, my days are usually, it usually consists of like waking up, taking care of the urgent things that I need to do, and then I have a period where I build, where I write things, where I put out strategy, and then I have another block of time where I deal with the clients that we're having. I think that putting structure into your day is really important, especially as you're like the chief everything officer.
Right.
You need to really set off time to do things with quality.
Yeah, I think that decision making and judgment becomes mission critical. You can't fix everything. Sometimes you're just going to have to let certain fires burn so you can get to them. And you got to, it's almost like that Eisenhower matrix where you've got important and urgent and not important and not urgent and important. You got to look it up, but I think that's really well said, that you need to be able to, there's only so many hours in a day. You have to learn to effectively delegate. You have to understand the things that only you can do. You have to prioritize incredibly well. You have to time block and structure your day. right?
For sure.
Like
Yeah.
if you scheduled your day in 10-minute blocks, I think people don't realize how much of their time they waste and they don't use
Yeah.
effectively. And
Mm.
that becomes more and more critical when you have kids, right? When you
Yeah.
have so many people that need you, staff, clients, vendors, there's only so many
Yeah.
hours in a day. I think that's a great tip for
Yeah.
people there. If people are interested in learning more, if they have questions about outsourcing to the Philippines, if they want to ask your input on anything, what are some of the best ways for them to get in touch and reach out?
They can go to my LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So that's, yeah, Johan Jedaker. If you search me on LinkedIn, you'll find me, and you're welcome to drop a message if you're like interested in our services, if you're looking to set up your own company or whatever it could be. I'm always happy to help out.
Perfect. So you can find him. It's Johan, Johan Jedaker. That's Johan Jedaker.
Yep.
Johan Jedaker. You can go find him on LinkedIn. Send him a message. I got the right one if it's better support. Johan, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. It was, yeah, a really nice conversation to have with you.
Thank you for coming and sharing, knowing that you've got hundreds of your own direct reports. You've got so many clients to take care of. You got your son. I know you're traveling right now. So thank you for taking time with my audience and I so we can all learn how to delegate and run our businesses better.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Daryl.